Hey everybody, and welcome to Arkham Detailed Deck Guide. I'm Justin from the channel Playing Board Games. You know me, even though I still do not have a mustache. I'll go like this for you guys. I am Justin, and I'm here to talk about Minty Fan in this deck guide for one that I'm playing on an upcoming series coming up on the channel, which was the custom campaign Cyclopean Foundations. Minty Fan is one of my favorite investigators. She's only beaten by Silas Marsh. I love skill-based investigators. I want more. I know I just got Amanda Sharp, but I'm already chomping at the bit for more. I need new skill-based investigators, please. I love them. It's my favorite archetype to play. Or not archetype, because it's not really an archetype, just skills. It's my favorite card style to play. So we have a Minty Fan skills deck, so why don't we dive in? We'll talk about Min and everything else on the next page before we get to the deck itself. Here it is. So as you see, I have 12 assets and permanents, 6 events, and 14 skills. Nearly half of my deck is skills, and it's just going to go up as we go. So Min's ability, she has 4 brain, 4 book, 2 fist, 2 foot. She's 7 horror, 7 damage. So she's pretty survivable. She's kind of like a tank. She has 4 brain too, so she's pretty defensive from most Mythos cards. And her 2 foot is low, which is the other defensive stat, but she's a skill-based investigator, so she can really make that work. Her reaction ability is after an investigator at your location commits a card to a skill test, that card gains a wild icon until the end of the test. Limit once for each investigator per round. So you can use it on yourself, someone else on your location can use it, and you can even use it when you're committing to help somebody else during their turn. It's super sick. It's a great ability. And while Min's not like, she's definitely on the lower power ranking for Seekers, just because like her ability is just so fair. She's not gonna like do anything crazy broken, but she is just gonna like always be there and always be good enough. She's not gonna break the game, but if you're looking for a clue getter that's just like good enough to get the job done and like have a pretty easy time doing it, it's Min. Her special card is Analytical Mind. It's a 3-cost talent asset, commits for 2 wild. Minty Fan deck only, you may commit 1 card to each skill test performed by an investigator at another location, and after you commit exactly 1 card to the skill test, exhaust Analytical Mind to draw a card. So this does 2 things. The first thing is it solves the big problem with skill-based decks, where if you run out of cards in your hand, you're kind of useless, because you're looking at committing skills as often as you can. Really, realistically, like at least 1 in the Mythos phase and then 1 during the investigation phase is kind of what you're like expecting out of a skill-based deck. More with someone like Silas, but we're not talking about Silas. We're talking about Min. This allows you to replace that card, and it also allows you to support from anywhere on the board, which is nice. It's like not broken, and it's not like, you know, needed, but the replacement of her perk, or her special card, is definitely great. Her weakness is the King in Yellow, the Revelation. Put the King in Yellow into play in your threat area. It cannot leave play except through the reaction ability below. You cannot commit exactly 1 or 2 cards to a skill test. It takes up a hand slot, which is relevant because if you have 2 hand slots, you will get rid of one of them. Just like how Baron Samedi kills one of your allies, the King in Yellow kills something you're holding in your hand slot if your hands are full. As a reaction, after a skill test is successful in which Minty Fan has committed at least 6 matching skill icons for that test, discard the King in Yellow. So this deck handles the King in Yellow pretty well. Every time in the campaign that I've played that I've drawn the King in Yellow, I've destroyed it on my next test. It's easy to get to 6 with Min in combination with her ability, Grizzly Totem, and all the skills in your deck, and we're going to be looking at completing it with your book. The book symbol is what we're looking at doing here with the King in Yellow. It can suck if you draw the autofail, so my recommendation for that is don't. You really can't have any strategy for it, just don't draw the autofail. Let's start talking about the deck itself. We're going to look at the goal of the deck, and the goal of the deck is we're going to essentially just talk about all of the skills that are included here, because the skills are what you do. Your goal is obviously, yes, to get clues, but I'm not going to just put like, I mean, I did put deduction here, but like you're using your skills to your advantage. So first up, we got deduction, commits for a book if your skill test is successful while investigating, discover an additional clue. A staple for seekers. Great card, very strong in min, especially with some of the survivor stuff. Actually, the only 2 survivor cards in this starting deck that we have to our advantage that we're using here. Scrounge for supplies to grab back deduction is not, once again, like nothing in this deck that's going to happen is broken. It's just fair. And it's just like good. It's good enough. And scrounging for deduction is just good enough when you're just starting out. Eureka. I like this card a lot. The skill test is successful, commits for a brain, a book, and a foot. So note all of the book and wild symbols we're seeing. You get to search the top 3 cards of your deck for a card and draw it, and then shuffle your deck. This helps you get stuff you need. It can help someone else get what you need, but it mostly keeps your hand full. It's a skill that replaces itself, which, as I said earlier, is huge. One thing to also remember with all of these skills, assume that there is one more icon of the icon you want on it. So Eureka is a Guts, a Perception, or a Manual Dex as needed. Deduction commits for 2 books, just because of Min's ability. Guts, 3 brain, 2 printed. It replaces itself and helps defend you during the Mythos phase. Great skill. Inquiring Mind is a great level 0 deck, level 0 skill. I would normally put this in kind of like the jank replaceables. Even though the card isn't jank, it does its job. It's just outclassed pretty early. So you need to be commit only to a skill test if there's a clue on your location. So that's an easy little like thing that you can do to get 4 symbols. It's great for getting rid of the king in yellow, especially early on in the campaign. And it's just a great level 0 card for a level 0 deck. Perception commits for 2 books, replaces itself after you use it. And it commits for just the books. It's a very relevant stat to Min. Getting upgraded versions is going to be nice, but we'll get to that once we get to the upgrade part of the deck. True Understanding. I always joke that I've only recently gotten a true understanding of this card. Commit only to a skill test from an ability printed on a scenario card. If this skill test is successful, discover 1 clue at your location. So what does this mean? Anytime you're not investigating, fighting, or evading, and the game on a Mythos card, on an enemy card that's like a parlay action, or just anything that's like it requires you to make a test. That's not a fight. That's not like a. I believe it's a basic fight. I could be wrong, and maybe someone in the comments will like let me know for sure. But as far as I'm aware, it's a skill test from an ability on a scenario card. And basic fight, basic investigate, basic evade, and even like bolded fight, investigate, evade, like through player cards. Obviously those are not scenario cards. Any test like that, it will work. So this is like, for an example, like a parlay on an enemy that's like test brain X, like the enemies in Return to the Circle Undone, where you can parlay with them to get doom off of them. As far as I'm aware, and I am 99.9% sure, there's always a 0.01 that I'll be wrong, that you can discover a clue off that. It's great card, especially is used like a Guts in the Mythos phase that lets you gain a clue. That's nice. That's good. I think the card's a great little thing to start in your deck. It might even actually make it to the final deck list. I don't remember what it is, what the final deck list is, so that's exciting. When we'll get there together, and I don't even know what it's going to be. I don't remember. It's been like a week since I've made these slides. I just think True Understanding is a nice card, especially for skill-based seekers. Not for all seekers, but for skill-based seekers especially. Unexpected Courage commits for 2 wild. Yeah, not much more to say. Commits for 3 wild with Invincibility. I think that's pretty sweet. You're a skill-based investigator, you need the skills. Power and core cards. So these are cards that are good, and they're important to the deck as we're just starting out. Dream Diary, it's a 2-cost asset that takes up a tome slot, a tome, a hand, it's a hand slot. There's no tome slot, I'm crazy. But as an action, you search your bonded cards for Essence of the Dream and add to your hand. As a reaction, after you succeed by 3 or more during a skill test to which Essence of the Dream is committed, record in your campaign log that you have interpreted the dreams. This is goal priority number 1 on the first scenario. Anytime you're playing Dream Diary in scenario 1, your goal is to translate, you interpret the dreams ASAP. That is key. As you can see on the card just below me, he's going to help us get there, but I'll get to that. Essence of the Dream is a wild, commits for 2 wilds, and when it enters your discard pile, be shuffled into your deck. Instead, set Essence of the Dream aside, out of play with your bonded cards. If you look at Min's ability, she adds a wild symbol, and if you look at Dream Diary, you need to succeed by 3 or more. So even though interpreting the dreams is really easy for most Seeker investigators, anyone who can run Dream Diary, it's super easy with Min because it gives you the 3 you need to succeed by, just by committing it with her ability. This gets especially spicy when we get to the upgraded ones, but we'll get to those in the future. In this deck, I run Hawkeye Folding Camera as our book boost. It does require a little bit of work, and I will say with this, we'll get to the replacements in a few, but to me, Hawkeye Folding Camera is a very strong two-handed or two-player item. Because generally, in 2 players, one of you is getting clues and the other one is fighting enemies. So that means with Hawkeye Folding Camera, you are the one who is responsible for grabbing the last clue off each location. So no matter what, you're going to get the progress on this. This does take a little bit of time. There is that investment where you need to take 2 locations clear of clues before you get your book bonus. But it does actually have a brain bonus, and pushing your brain up to 5 means that the Mythos cards are like not a problem for you. And I really like that. Like, I probably wouldn't run this. I wouldn't run Hawkeye Folding Camera in like a 3-5 Seeker, but I think in a 4-4 like Minty Fan or a 5-4, I think that's what Norman Withers is. It's actually I'm curious what Norman Withers is. Let's just quickly, I want to check. I think it's an easy card to include. It's a 4-5. He's a 4-5. Okay, so that's, yeah. I think it's even stronger there in Mr. Norman Withers. But I do think in Min it does the job. Becoming a 5-5-2-2 is super nice. Yeah, for that one. I just think it's a nice card. We'll get to the replacements in a few. Research Librarian, his job is here to grab your Dream Diary, and you can play that Dream Diary and get it translated. Once again, it's very important. And then he just soaks a horror and a damage for you, or sometimes a horror or a damage, depending on how you're feeling. Worst case scenario, he also commits for a 2-foot because of her Min's ability, which is not like bad. It lets her go up to 4. That's not terrible. Research Librarian could stay in your deck for the whole thing, and he still's just like either grabs you the Dream Diary on turn 1, or he's just a manual dex, or you can go as you upgrade. We'll get to that in the future when we get to my final deck list. Let's see what some other core and power cards are here for Min T Fan. Dr. Milan Christopher. There's not much more I can say to them than other that he's just incredible. Get +1 book, and after you investigate, exhaust him to gain 1 resource. If you're not playing Tabooed, he's even better. He acts as like the majority of your economy in this. It's a skill-based deck, so also your economy is not crazy. You can get away with very little economy in here. As you can see in this one, we just have Dr. Milan and Crack the Case. So much to the point that as you upgrade, you can just go to Dr. Milan. You don't even need to Crack the Cases anymore, just because when you're such a skill-based deck, money isn't really too important to you. Great card, super strong, boosts irrelevant stats, so your goal is to get 5 brain, 6 book. Shortcut, another very strong card, lets you move for free. That's great. Shrewd Analysis is here because you're going to be upgrading your Dream Diaries, and getting 2 for the price of 1 is good. And the Dream Diaries, you're not too picky on what you get, actually, because you really are just in that for the free Unexpected Courage every turn with Min. That's why you're doing it. The bonus of getting 2 more symbols, or sometimes 4 more symbols, is kind of just gravy. What the heck happened there? Excuse me. That was a little bit of a twist. This card should probably, I think this card is supposed to be in the, I think it's supposed to be, and man, that's its own separate slide. I just somehow mucked up. But yeah, it just gets you back a card. It could get you back a Eureka if you want to search your deck, a Deduction if you want to grab a lot of clues, a Hawkeye Folding Camera if you somehow discard it, But Hawkeye Folding Camera, if we go back to Hawkeye Folding Camera, it gets worse the later you play it. So just be aware of that. You kind of really want it on like turn 1 or 2. And then Scrounger Supplies. Just a good card, gets you something back. In my playthrough of this deck, I used it to mostly grab deductions. It's hard to beat deduction. Economy, as Dr. Milan Christopher could also be here, but Crack the Case is just a nice little boost of clues, a sort of boost of resources that exist in a great card. Really easy to play, and you're going to be grabbing clues off locations anyway, so if you need a boost, Crack the Case can do it. Something to be aware of is that you could also play Dark Horseman. I started this deck as a Dark Horseman, but took it out and just went heavily on the skills. I do think the deck is better without Dark Horse, just because Dr. Milan Christopher is just such a good card. And if you're playing Dark Horse, you kind of don't want Dr. Milan Christopher. But I maybe will do some Dark Horsemen in the future. But I don't want to talk too much about it because that's not, that's not the focus here. Fun stuff and jank. All right. We got Arcane Enlightenment. There's actually very little like jank in this deck. We have these are each of our 1-ofs. Arcane Enlightenment is here just to, the maximum hand size increased by 1 is fluff. We don't care about that much in this deck. But they have 1 additional hand slot which can only be used to hold a tome asset. For 2 resources and an action, you can basically just protect your hand slots from the King in Yellow, which is fine. It's not like a priority, but if you ever can like have the moment, like you have your hands full with a Hawkeye Folding Camera and a Dream Diary, and on Eureka you find an Arcane Enlightenment after investigating, you might as well grab it and play it, just to protect your assets. Grizzly Totem. If you commit a card to skill test, exhaust it, it gains another instance of one of its skill icons of your choice. Hey, wouldn't it be fun to have Min's ability twice? Not much more to say than that. It would be fun. All right, let's look at some alternatives. Magnifying Glass may bring you more success than Hawkeye Folding Camera and higher player counts. The reason I like Hawkeye Folding Camera is because it's a passive book bonus. It's not just a book bonus while investigating. Hawkeye Folding Camera always gives you that boost. However, I do respect the fact that in 3 or more player games, Hawkeye Folding Camera is worse than Magnifying Glass. But in a 2-handed or 2-player, ooh, it's juicy. It's great. Solano Fragments and Win and Green can be good replacements if you're going for a book or hand size build. So as you see all of these, they boost your book, which is the relevant thing here. Solano Fragments can do your brain, but I don't think it's that likely with Min. You're not playing big hand Min, you're playing skill Min. So you're most likely just trying to get the 5 hands to get this, to get +1 book. For these, personally, I think Magnifying Glass is better than Solano Fragments here. But if you are also going for Wit and Green, I do think Solano Fragments can be good. You'll probably play that over Dr. Milan. Maybe, potentially. Emergency Cash and Burning the Midnight Oil can provide more resources if needed. Both are just nice cards that if you are trying to add a bit more relics or just expensive stuff, you can in Min. I will say though, if you go heavy on the skills, Min is just going to never run out of gas, where if you're playing things that cost money, you're more likely to run out of gas. Deep Knowledge is an easy way to draw more cards. As I said earlier, a problem with skill-based decks is that you're looking at losing a card and 2 cards a hand every turn. And if they don't have a way to replace themselves, like with Analytical Mind or Upgraded Grizzly Totem, you are going to just like lose resources as the game goes, because once again your hand of cards is a resource. So if you find that you are worried about that, or as you've played skills before, or you want to go lighter on the skills, Deep Knowledge is a great way to draw more cards. It's just 1 action, draw 3, add 2 curse tokens, and the curse tokens ain't really a problem. Last one here is Take Heart. It provides both cards and resources, depending on what you need. The downside is you need to fail, which actually, sometimes you can just not. So you can actually just pass a Take Heart test somehow. I've seen it happen quite a bit. But if you are looking for this, you can put it into a foot test on a Mythos card. But I do think the other options on this card are just better at cards and resources if you need them, for at least a Minty fan. It's just because, like, with survivors, going back over here, with survivors, you're like so good at getting clue. You're so good at failing already. You're like weak against the Mythos deck because your whole thing is failing and not being afraid to fail. While Min is actually like strong against the Mythos deck, so Take Heart is going to be a little bit weaker in her. Look what I found. Help give some security to your investigations. You do fail sometimes, especially on High Shroud's locations, and this can get you clues if you're worried about that. But luckily, it can get the job done if need be. Winging it is a bit fiddly in mid, admittedly, but can do some work in the right times to accelerate your clue getting. If you are worried about the pace in which you can get clues, winging it can work for that. The only downside for winging it is that you have no built-in way to discard it. I think with Min's ability, let's do some quick Arkham DB research here. So let's look for Min. After investigator location commits a card to a skill test, that card gains a wild icon until the end of the test. So you actually do have a built-in way of taking advantage and discarding winging it. I think anyway. Because unless there's a rule about committing, I mean, there might be a rule because Take Heart says you can make committed to any type of skill test. So you probably actually can't commit winging it. Now that I'm going like this, you know what, let's keep this going. Min, I can't press the space bar. Let's do slash winging it. Oh, there we go. All right, let's control F Min. Let's just do some. Yeah. I don't think you can, now that I'm going on this. Honestly, you know what? Scroll down to the comments. Someone down there is going to answer for sure. My final idea is that you cannot play this card. You can't commit this card with Min because it doesn't have that rider text of Take Heart saying you may commit it to any type of test. So we're back to as we originally stated. You have no built-in way to discard this card, but it can accelerate clue getting if that's what you're looking to do. What a journey we just went on. Okay, we have some more skills and then a card that pays off to skills. Curiosity does well in a big hand deck, but it's still a Guts or Perception for Min worst case scenario, and Guts and Perceptions are two relevant cards. I'm not a crazy fan of Curiosity, so that's why I didn't make this deck, but I don't think the card is bad, and as I said, it's a Guts or Perception worst case for Min, and that's not a bad thing. Resourceful is strong, yes, but you're going to want more Survivor cards in your deck if you're going to run Resourceful. Because we're just running in the deck earlier, because we're just running Scrounge for Supplies, Resourceful to Scrounge for Supplies is pretty low impact. So yeah, if you're going to want to run Resourceful, you're going to want more Survivor cards to get back. Practice Makes Perfect is very powerful, but ensure your deck has enough practice cards like Plan of Action so it hits. I believe in a recent video we were talking about it, and it's like, I don't want to put words in Travis's mouth, but if I remember correctly, it's like 6 to 8. For me, it's like 7 to 8 practice skills is where I like to get it. 6 is like fine, but you're gonna miss more often than you want. So like if you have like 7 to 8 practice cards, that's where I usually go for it. 6 is fine. Once again, I've run it with 6, but I've also missed with a few of my Practice Makes Perfects, which you don't really want to do. Last but not least, the Plan of Action is an example of a practice card. It commits for 2 wilds with Min's ability and then more depending on when you play it. Nice. Can't complain about that. A Glimmer of Hope is quite strong in Min, providing an endless stream of unexpected courages. This gets better with Grizzly Totem. So, Glimmer of Hope. We're going to just talk about this for a second because if you wanted to... I do think this card is really strong in Min. I have not played it in Min because I actually only have played Min like 3 times, I think. But the thing with Min is that, once again, skill-based, you're going to run out of skills. This is like, you just don't. So it has Myriad. A Glimmer of Hope can only be played from your discard pile. Add all copies of A Glimmer of Hope in your discard pile to your hand, including this copy. So, how it works is you commit your Glimmer of Hopes for 2 wild, or just 1 if you've already used it, but still you want it in your discard pile. And with a Grizzly Totem, as I said, it gets an extra symbol, so then it's 3, which is sick. And then, once they're all in there, you just spend an action, pay 1, refill your hand with 3 unexpected courages. Seems great. Honestly, I think it's a great addition to the Min deck. Lucky's a great card. There's not much more to it. It finds a good home in any deck that can run it, which is usually a Survivor deck. Sweet. All right. Upgrades. Upgrade those dream diaries. Interpreting the dreams should be priority number 1 on the first scenario, so you can take those slower and clunkier dream diaries out and upgrade randomly into a much better free essence of the dream each turn. So, as I said earlier, a good job past Justin, and also, I suppose, but closer past Justin, for agreeing on this. Interpreting the dreams is priority number 1, and you can have Force Shroud, which is actually sick with Min. This is the one you kind of like want to hit with Min, but once again, we're doing random because that's fine. You're just looking to get 2 of these and replace the clunkier ones. If you're engaged with an enemy, which is also actually still good in Min, because if you're engaged with an enemy, your Essence of the Dream now commits and turns for 1 card that you get for free. You have 6 foot, which means you just run away from your problems, no problem. Wow, that's awesome. And then you have 8 cards in hand, which for me personally, I think this is the weakest one with Min, unless you're building around hand size. And like, there will be times when it will proc, but it's never going to just proc on its own. You need to like be saving cards and making sure your card economy is really good. So that's why I personally think it's the weakest, but you're happy with any of them. You're doing this for the free Essence of the Dream each turn. So upgrade those dream diaries. That's priority number 1. Make your skills better. Part 1. Ancestral Knowledge gives you 5 skills you can draw as needed, and Grizzly Totem 3 gives all of your skills 1 more symbols and replaces itself if you pass. And you better frickin' pass. Ancestral Knowledge, I've now played in both Amanda and Min, and the card is just sick in any skill-based investigator. I do think it also can work in other investigators, but because you need at least 10 skills, that is a little bit of a tricky thing to get if you're not going heavy on the skills. But it ultimately just makes it so that you're really only running 5, because at the start of the game, you get the 5 random non-weakness skills face down to this card, and then as a lightning bolt, you can exhaust it to draw one of the attached skills of your choice. That's awesome. That's just card advantage, and you can like build a plan and grab what you need when you need it. This also has a nice little boon because your deck size is increased by 5, but like not really, because you take 5 cards out each at the beginning of each game. So I use this Ancestral Knowledge to load up on a few other cards like Lucky. Honestly, actually, if you add Ancestral Knowledge and you're wondering what 5 cards you should add, just add Lucky and Glimmer of Hope, or whatever that card was. Yeah, like, those 5 cards right there are going to do so much for your deck. Whew. It's juicy, because you're already going to have 10 skills when we come in. Upgraded Grizzly Totem, as I said earlier, it gives the skills 1 of your symbols, which the first one already did, but now if the test is successful, you must draw a card. And that's fine, because your job is to replace your cards with new cards after you commit them to tests. Make your skills better, Part 2. Deduction and Perception aren't priority upgrades, deduction especially depending on player count, but getting them will be a nice boost to those cards. Unexpected 2 isn't necessary, Unexpected Courage 2 isn't necessary, but Test Insurance is nice. Because Unexpected Courage is essentially like the security of, basically if you fail, it replaces itself in hands, it comes back, means that you haven't just wasted a card, which as I said previously with Min, is kind of an issue. Upgraded Deduction is strong, Upgraded Perception is also nice, but as I said, none of these are priority upgrades, but if you're at that point when you're like, what can I do to make my deck better? Just making your skills better is sweet. Get some better skills while you're looking at, making your skills better. Why don't we grab a few better ones? All of these skills will provide a nice boost to your deck. Unrelenting is nice card draw. Sharp Vision boosts clue getting. The Eye of Truth says screw you to the game. And Fey is a good defensive or offensive skill. Unrelenting is weaker here than it is in Silas, but in all fairness, in Silas, the card is absolutely freaking busted. So with this one, you're looking at this as card draw, where you're going to seal the +1 and 2 zeros. That's what I just default to on every Unrelenting. If you have Blessed tokens you want to defend, you can seal the Blessed tokens. Don't seal the Elder Sign. There's no point. I did a few times. just because like I was like, oh, it's easy. Say the 3 strongest. Elder Sign +1, 0. No, seal the +1 and the 0 and the 0, draw 2 cards, and then release those tokens. It's great. It's great. Broken in Silas, still fine in Min. It's like a better Take Heart, in my opinion. Sharp Vision accelerates clue getting. Not much more to say. Eye of Truth is fun, and if it gets attached to the Ancestral Knowledge, it's being able to grab that early on and just like be prepared for it, because like it's a 5 experience card, so you're going to want to find it and play it because you paid a lot of experience for it. And I just think it's nice and fun. It's fun. Fae I really like, just because it commits for 4 brain when you're a Min-T fan. I don't think the text is that relevant, and I think just having more skills or alternatively 3 wilds is pretty nice. This is an easy replacement for Inquiring Mind? Is that what that one I said is that you replace that's just 3 wild? I'm the best. Yeah, it is. It's an easy replacement for Inquiring Mind because it essentially like is that with no stipulation, and it works very well against the Mythos deck. Become Guided by the Unseen. Okay, so this one I actually came across when I was building the deck, and then I put it into practice in my Min deck in the Cyclopean Foundations. Cyclopean Foundations? I don't know, I'll just say both. So, Guided by the Unseen is powerful in Min all by itself, but couple that with Surprising Find and you have some fantastic card draw and skill boosting for your tests. So, Guided by the Unseen, once in a test, you can search the top 3 cards of your deck for a card that can be committed to this test. You may spend 1 secret to commit that card and then shuffle the Investigator's deck. Surprising Find, if you find it while searching, you put it aside and commit it to the next test, and if it's successful, draw a card. I don't think this is, like, once again, particularly busted, but it is fun. I will say, it's kind of fun. And Guided by the Unseen, I do think is just very strong in Min, but, like, being able to just, like, on each test, search for a Surprising Find if you haven't pulled it out of your deck yet, and then get the boost later to draw a card for essentially free, while also thinning your deck of the cards you don't want to draw is nice. And Surprising Find, it's the least painful to draw in Min because it's an Unexpected Courage, which is nice. Finally, I believe this is the last one, get some skill test insurance. If you want to protect yourself and your skill cards during tests, these 3 cards could find a good place in your deck. Try and try again. After a skill test has failed, you can exhaust it to spend a try to return that to your hand. So it's like a Silas when you fail. Third time's a charm, fast. Fast, play when a skill test at your location begins. Twice during this test, when an investigator reveals a chaos token, they may cancel it, return it to the chaos bag, and reveal a new token. This is just some Wendy Adams. If you want a Wendy Adams, you're a Min-T fan. So you can Silas, Wendy's, or I believe this is just Silas again, which is Butterfly Effect. Fast, play when a chaos token with a symbol is revealed during a skill test at your location. You're the performing investigator may either commit a card to the skill test or return a card they committed to the skill test. So it's half Silas. It's half Silas. Yeah, I don't think these are priority upgrades, nor do I think they're like incredibly powerful for this. But if you do want to get some skill test insurance to not fail or to avoid failing, Survivor's obviously the class that does that. All right. So this deck has kind of strayed a bit from my deck that I have building for the Cyclopean Foundations. Cyclopean Foundations? It's, for example, with this one, the Research Librarian stayed in, which I don't think is like a terrible choice, but if I had a bit more experience, I probably would bring those out at this point, because I did that in my actual one. But leaving them in just as a manual deck's worst case scenario is still not like terrible. It's a manual deck that doesn't replace itself. That's just the shorthand because it commits for 2 foot. But the 2 Dream Diaries, Grizzly Totem, still just as a one of, because I don't think it's like needed. It's just nice. Ancestral Knowledge is sick. As I said, having that there is really strong. And I use that, as you can see, to put in these Luckies over there. Deduction level 2s, 2 phase, 2 perception 2s, 2 sharp vision, 1 eye of truth, and 2 unrelenting. Yeah, that's the final deck. I love Min. She's great. Once again, you're not going to like break the game with her, but you're going to have a good time. She's fun. I like her a lot. She's great support, but she also can get clues not as efficiently as someone like Rex, who is sculpted from like marble of clue. Like he's like clue getting Adonis, right? Or not as broken as Mandy because she's searching her deck all the time. But she's good. I like Min. She's just like a fair yellow investigator, and that's fun. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you want to see anyone else in this series, let me know. I am thinking of doing a Silas deck based on my the Innsmouth Conspiracy, because I do think the Silas Marsh never fails a test sounds like a fun deck to put out there. So if you want to see that, let me know. I won't release it till after our Innsmouth Conspiracy campaign is finished on YouTube. I mean, I even can do it during. Just let me know in the comments. As you guys know, a lot of the content we make on this channel I use from your suggestions to see what you guys want. Because ultimately, while yes, we love making this content, we make it for you and us, but also you. Thanks for watching. You can find the deck list down below in the video description. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. And as always, I'm just going to kill some time because I want to end this at 36:36. GG's!